as we continue to monitor the situation outdoors with the heavy rainfalls that we had, and with the heavy rain that is expected today, and some cooler temperatures on the way. Those could all be issues for you to address, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very well.
Good.
Very well. Strawberry fields probably took a licking yesterday, didn't they?
Yep.
Out in your strawberry fields anyway.
Sure did.
Uh-huh.
That's about the end of that.
Is it the end of the strawberry season for your stuff?
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Yesterday and today, that'll
Okay.
pretty much turn it to mush.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you got as much out of it as you possibly could then.
We tried.
Yeah.
The weather definitely impacted things this year.
Well, with folks having...
Negatively.
Yeah. with folks having crops out, gardens out, and things of that nature, and certainly when they deal with an overwhelming amount of water, such as they have in the last 24 hours, and it looks like going to for the next 24 hours or so, there's not a whole lot they can do. Is there, when you have runoff such as that's just going to take your soil away? Let's talk a little bit about restoring the soil that has just been washed away, because that topsoil is a nutrient rich. It
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully it is. Not in all cases. If we've taken care of it and been good stewards of it, then yes, it's our bank for our plants to grow. So it's the soil is the bank where we store the nutrients, which we could think of as money, that the plants use to grow. And then we periodically make deposits in there, and we add to those nutrients. And then we also, as the plants grow, they utilize those nutrients. And as we harvest crops, we remove those nutrients. So we always need to be on a cycle of replacing and building up the soil. And then we have events like this that challenge our fortitude in trying to deal with that. So in trying to prevent or plan ahead, or occasionally these things happen.
Well, I was thinking the way farmers contour fields,
yes,
with a plowed field and then a nice thick strip of grass and then another plowed field. If you had the space, would that theory work in your vegetable garden with 12 or 18 inches of a grassy strip between the sections of your garden?
Oh, yes. Anything that will help hold soil in place. So a lot of times we use plants to help hold soil in place or to minimize soil moving off-site. Mm-hmm. So all those contour strips, why do you plant around the hill instead of, planting in squares or just blocks? Well, because our hills tend to run like that.
Gravity runs downhill.
And gravity runs downhill. So by making those contour strips, they make them fairly level, so they'll go out around the hill and try to follow that so that you only have a minimal grade there. And then between those strips, you usually alternate those crops so that you've got maybe a sod crop between plantings. Now, that's not always the case because it depends on the type of farming you're doing. If you have animals and you need hay, then you're most likely going to have those strips where you might have corn or beans, and then you'll have a hay crop and then another strip of corn or beans.
Let's get to our caller. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Good, good. Two quick questions for Bob. The first one is, last year, my garden, beautiful zucchinis growing, and there was a bug that got into my zucchini plant. I forget what the type of bug it is, but what do you recommend to keeping those alive, basically?
Well, it may have been, there's a couple different things that may attack those. If it bored into the stem around the base of the plant.
That's what it did.
Okay. There's a stem borer that gets in there, squash vine borer, they call it. It attacks different kinds of squash, including the zucchini, and it will lay eggs around the soil and near the base of the plant, and then those eggs will hatch. The larvae are what actually bore into the stem, and then they can, over time, they'll do enough damage. Usually you can get some harvest off them, but not as much as you would if they had not attacked them. So a couple things you can do. to help prevent that. One is to put something around the base of the plant. Sometimes people will put just simply a piece of aluminum foil, or they'll cut out a disc out of a material that'll just be able to hold up during the weather conditions. That helps prevent those adult insects from laying eggs around the base of the plant.
Okay, so the little creature is not actually in the ground?
No, it's the adult would lay eggs in the soil around the base, and then those eggs hatch, and then those larvae move. Yeah, so they're not actually a soil-dwelling insect. It's just the soil's a spot where the eggs are laid, and then they migrate from there, and are attracted to that plant and bore into the stem and feed in the stem, and then it messes up the vascular system and eventually keeps the plant from taking up water, and then it'll decline and die.
Okay. And second quick question. I have a maple tree that I'm a little concerned about, that it's rotting. It seems like on dry days, at least 5 to 6 feet up from the trunk, like it's always wet. Is that an indication that the tree is dying?
Eventually, that's probably what will happen. A lot of times with things like that, it's a slow decline. There could be an organism in there, a fungal organism that's causing that. Also need to look at the structure of the tree and the health of the tree. Are there cavities in there? Sometimes it can be moisture that collects because the internal middle of the tree is decaying. And so
there is a lot of fungus in that 5 to 6 feet, like green type fungus.
Okay, if it's on the outer surface of the bark, then that's probably what we call lichens, lichens, and that's a combination of a algae and a fungus that grow on the bark. You can see that stuff growing on rocks too. So it's not, that in itself is not detrimental or harmful to the tree, or it's not causing the act of infection that may be there. So there are some internal decays or declines that will happen with maples and other species as well. But you'll just start and get a kind of a canker, which is what we would call that area where the cells have died, the wood's died. You may get some peeling bark off of that. It may not be evident yet, but there's an internal decay going on there. Have you lost some branches?
Yeah, there's a few dead branches.
Okay.
A few, not many, but a few.
There's not a lot we can do about these kind of things other than try to promote the best health of the plant we can. So just trying to avoid excessive moisture, which is tough to do, as well as the other end of that, excessive drought. Anything that'll stress the tree, that will help minimize, the damage that's being done to the tree. Try to maintain it as healthy as possible, just to get it to live as long as it will. If you start losing more branches, there could be other internal decay. You may have lost a branch. That branch starts to decay. That moisture, and just through our 4 seasons of winter where we get freezing and thawing and moisture getting into the trunk, then that will, and a lot of times that can kind of go unnoticed, where you'll get internal decay in the trunk for a while until you start seeing some other symptoms there.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, you are welcome.
It is Indiana in the Morning here on AM 1160 WCCS and 101.1 FM. With the wind yesterday, and the gentleman I was talking to this morning was talking about how the trees were, some of them bent over to the ground. And I know that it's going to be different for an older tree versus a younger tree, but maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that. We do want to take this call, though, and give them a chance. Good morning.
Hi, Bob.
Good morning.
The rainy weather that we've been having brings my question to the fore. should you apply fungicide and insecticide, particularly fungicide, more often than the label recommends when we're experiencing weather like this?
Most likely the answer to that is yes, because once we get 1 to 2 inches of rain, let's say you treated on Thursday and yesterday before it rained,
right,
had time to dry on there. So then those areas that got 4 inches or more, most likely all that material is gone now. It was washed off from that volume of rain. So the label might say to utilize it every 7 to 10 days.
Right.
So in this case, where we get a event that removes that, then we need to go reapply.
Okay.
That's
especially, what I'll do.
Yeah, and whether it's an insecticide or a fungicide, whatever material you're using, with that kind of volume of rain, we're gonna lose that, and so to protect the plants, we would need to reapply again.
Okay, thanks a bunch.
And then we have to wait until the leaves are dry, so that we can apply that properly and get it to stick on there. Not when the leaves are wet, because if the leaves are wet, then if you would spray, then it's just going to stay moist with those other water droplets that are on there.
Reapply.
And then it's not going to do any good. So we need to wait. Yep.
Reapply. Was at a basketball game, and the cheerleaders were in front of her, and they were just getting ready to start the game, and she pulled out the head cheerleader pulled out her makeup kit, and she said to the rest of the cheerleaders, "Okay, girls, it's time to reapply." So they were getting their game faces on, literally. There you go. He is Bob Pollock from the Extension Service. You have a question for Bob, and it's not during this radio segment. You can still get in touch with him at the office at 465-3880.
Yes.
And can you still go to the website and get a question submitted there?
Yeah, or you can email
me. Why am I
me.
asking you?
Yeah, email me at rcp3@psu.edu. Of course, if you do a search,
RCP3.
I'll come up on there.
rcp3@psu.edu.
Yes, that'll work.
Gotcha.
Either way.
Okay, sir. We'll stay out of the mud today.
Yeah, well, that'll be very difficult to do.
20,
unless we stay on the pavement out here.
20 seconds or less. The damage that was done to shrubs and plants and things. Can we reshape those things that were misshapen by the stuff that they got last night, or we just have to let them go the way they're going?
Usually, a lot of times, those heavy water and all that, and this time of year, plants are much more pliable, that you can tie them back up or get them shaped back up again.
Okay.
Very different than once they've hardened off, especially that new growth that's soft, we can mold that a bit. Once it gets hardened off and more woody, then much more difficult to reshape.
He is Bob Pollock, and it is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank.